Hello, everyone. Hi, Dana. Nice talking to you again.
You as
So
well.
we are almost close to 6 o'clock, but I see that people are still coming in. So let's give them a few more minutes and then we can start.
Sounds good. Oops. Everybody that's on right now, I'm really curious where you're from. Could you type in the chat? Are you from Mexico, Colombia, Brazil? Where are you from? I'll start. I'm from Canada.
Yeah, I'm from Brazil actually, but I've been living in Canada for almost 2 years right now.
Okay.
And I recognize some names here, some friends actually from living in Canada at the moment, but also from Mexico and other countries. So
Un
let's see.
gusto conocerles. I don't speak Portuguese yet, but
Yeah, and it's from Brazil as well.
we're Canada home for 34 years. Wow. That makes me so happy. It makes me
Yeah.
really happy when people decide to go to Canada instead of the United States.
Yeah, I would definitely pick Canada as well over the US, to be honest. And Nicaragua, nice.
Nicaragua, Mexico, Peru. I'm gonna be moving to Colombia later this year.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Around October, I'm gonna move to Medellin.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I have friends actually that moved to Colombia last year. They moved from Brazil to Colombia and they got a job offer there and then definitely moved. I think it was a combination of the desire to learn Spanish. You know, Portuguese and Spanish are pretty similar. But usually people think that we can speak Spanish, but we actually don't. We can understand pretty much, but we're not able to speak fluently in most of the case, of course.
Yeah, now that I speak Spanish, if I see Portuguese written down, I can usually understand a lot of it, but listening to Portuguese is totally different.
It's a little bit different. That's true. That's true.
Muchos colombianos.
Okay, so let's just give a few more minutes here. So let me go over the list. So we have Colombia, Brazil, Mexico, Nicaragua, Peru.
Oh, yeah. Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mauricio. All right, where are you from in Colombia? I'm curious. Is mostly everybody, okay, from Bogota, okay. I'm gonna go to Bogota for 2 or 3 weeks first, and then go to Medellin. Many soles. I have not heard of it.
Yeah, and actually I don't know as well. That's new to me. Galo, yeah.
Close to Medellin, okay, awesome. You can recommend me some good bars to go to, maybe.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm gonna Google here. I want to see where it is. Oh, okay. So it's like northwest of Colombia. Yeah,
Correct.
kind of close to Bogota. Medellin. Yeah, it's like actually kind of in the middle of Medellin and Bogota. It's pretty much close to both.
When you're Canadian, it's so funny because I go to other countries and people are like, oh yeah, like it's kind of far. It's like 2 or 3 hours away. I'm like, oh my gosh, no, That's nothing. Cali. Okay, I have a friend that lives in Cali right now as well. I went to university with him.
Yeah, it's a different perspective, right?
Yeah. Like I went to university on the east coast of Canada, and I would drive to school. Like I would move myself out, but that's like an 18-hour drive, and that's just kind of normal.
Yeah, Canada and Brazil, they're such a large country that then actually the perspective we have, like when you talk about far distances, like completely different, right?
Bienvenida, Alejandra, de Venezuela.
Okay, so this one doesn't let me use my phone for audio. Carlos, I'm not sure if you can try to connect as well using the same link on your phone. I actually can try to make this myself here, just make sure it works. Oh, it's decided when the zone is defined, so.
Should be, usually you can just hit the number and it dials.
Yeah, I'm gonna text Carlos. I'm gonna yes I could, but I want to use my laptop for big screen and so. Okay.
Okay.
That's smart.
That was great. Okay. Should we get started?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Okay.
You
So
good?
good evening. Yep. I'm just gonna let me just ask.
Hi there. Sorry, it does say that both telephone and computer audio can be used. There's usually like a telephone number that is provided. Carlos, did you not have that telephone number that for the webinar?
I have a number here. Let me just actually send to everyone. I will type in a number that I have here. So this should be good. 272. So this should be one of the numbers that you can dial to and connect via your phone. So Carlos, I would like you to try that number and just confirm to us that it works actually. I think we can start. So good evening, everyone. My name is Rafael Bettoni, and today I will be the co-host for this webinar with Dana, and I'll be the co-host on behalf of Hispanotech. And I would like to thank each and every one of you for joining us and providing us the support. This webinar was actually prepared for you, and we hope you enjoy at its fullest. A special thank you as well for Hispanotech and for all the personal behind the scenes for making it happen. I'm just a co-host here, but I have a lot of more people working and to provide you this amazing opportunity and event. Of course, as well, another special thank you to TRIAC, the Toronto Region Immigration Employment Council, for providing us the means to bring this together, right? A quick note about the webinar today. This is going to be approximately an hour long. We're going to have 45-ish minutes for the presentation. And at the end, we're going to say 15 to 10 minutes for the Q&A session. And for the Q&A session, as you already did, some of you already did, you're going to be able to type in your questions, and this is going to allow you to communicate with us and with Dana. And it's also possible if you have your audio connected, you can raise your hand. You should be able to have a small icon on your screen. And once you raise your hand, we're going to be able to unmute you. And in that way, you can use your voice to send us a message and to talk to us. Okay. I'm really happy to have Dana with us to talk about the broader breakthrough, the business communication in North America. For those who doesn't know Dana yet, Dana is the founder of Doswell Inc. and the co-founder of Sidebar Digital. She helped the Spanish and English-speaking executives to use communication, as a mean to grow their grow mechanism to leverage their career and their business. Through Doswell Inc., she provides one-on-one communication and training and consulting programs that teach actually Latinos how to communicate effectively in the North American setting. And as Sidebar Digital then creates and implements digital transformation strategies for companies within the finance, real estate, and legal industry. She speaks fluent Spanish, as you already see. She talks to you in Spanish. She loves the Latin culture. We like that. And you can pretty much catch her sipping coffee any time of the day. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dana. And then I would like you to take the webinar from here. So everyone sit tight and comfortable, and please enjoy the webinar with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm super, super excited to be here. I've actually been living in Mexico for the past 5 months, and I just came back to Canada. So I'm in an Airbnb isolating right now doing this webinar. So it's a really great way to pass the time. And thank you all for being here at 6 p.m. on a Wednesday. So we're going to dive in. This is going to be our agenda for today. So as Raphael mentioned, my area of focus really is communication. So effective communication, not only with just the vocabulary and the words that you use, but also understanding how to apply cultural context. So today we're going to look at the 3 cultural differences that I believe are the most important, specifically in a business setting. This is the first time you meet somebody, how we establish trust, specifically in North America, and then when you should bring money into the conversation, because they're completely different in both cultures. And when I had the experience of selling into the Latin American culture, I got shut down so hard so many times because I did not know any of these things. I learned my lesson now, but I'm really happy to be able to share this knowledge with people, and specifically helping people from Latin America be more successful in the North American market. So Raphael already did a really great job of introducing me. I'm gonna move this over here, it'll stay, okay. This is the bio that he said, and just to kind of add on to this is, I started learning Spanish about 3 years ago, and as he said, I absolutely fell in love with the Latin culture. I took an introduction Spanish class in Toronto, and then early last year, I decided that I had to actually immerse myself in the culture. I wanted to improve my Spanish. So I traveled to Costa Rica, Argentina, and I lived in Mexico for 3 months. And then this year I went back, and I've been living in Mexico for the past 5 months. That being said, most of the clients that I work with in Latin America are Colombian. It just kind of happened that way. But I've loved absolutely everything about getting to know the Latin culture. And through all of this time, I've changed my business a couple of times. And really what I've ended up doing is this, and that is specifically helping Latinos working in a North American company to better communicate, primarily in presentations, email correspondence, and now with the pandemic, everything is really focused on digital communication. So if you do have any questions about digital transformation as well, I'm always happy to chat about that. That is what my other company does, but today we're going to be focusing on the communication piece. So this is the concept that I've become really, really, really obsessed with, just kind of being able to be immersed in the Latin culture, but then still doing business and working with clients regularly in North America, is cultural context. Because everybody right now is in Canada. I went to university on the East Coast of Canada, and even that is a different culture in comparison to Toronto. In Toronto, almost 50% of people that live there are from other countries. And so if you're selling or you're marketing or you're doing customer service, it's much more likely that it's going to be a prerequisite that you're bilingual or even trilingual, or that you're able to talk in an English in a language other than English if you're working in Toronto. In Halifax, for example, where I went to university, that's completely not the case. It's a completely different culture. There's a lot of agriculture and farming that still goes on there versus, people living downtown Toronto. It's completely different. So this is how I like to think of cultural context. And I like to kind of think of it almost from a story perspective, because we've all gone through this at one point. So let's say, you're opening your business and you're trying to sell something into another part of the world. Maybe you're already successful in your current market. But in this other market, the language is different, the competitors are different, and really just everything is different. So what is your next step? The logical thing to do is you start learning all of these things. You learn the language, you learn who your competitors are in the new market, and you start to learn about all the cultural differences that create the social fabric. So there's the things that people say and the things that we don't say. And it's the things that we don't say that are really, really important in a business setting, because that can indicate to you that you're about to close a deal, or that somebody's not impressed with what you're doing, or that somebody is really happy and they're going to sign and move forward and become a new client of yours. So when you start learning about all of these things, what you're doing is creating cultural context for yourself so that you can take the knowledge and the understanding of, number one, what is different, number two, how it's different. And these two things allow you to actually apply this new knowledge and start to adapt your communication and behavior so that you can grow your career, you can gain new clients, get a promotion, whatever it is that you want. And no matter if you are a CEO, a salesperson, you're an operations manager, this always applies to you when you are doing business in a second or third language and in another country. So this really forms the basis for everything that we're going to be talking about today, and really what my work revolves around, which is helping people break the cultural barriers and understand why things happen so that they can then use critical thinking in their day-to-day and start actually communicating more naturally. Questions about this? Comments? Has anybody seen this before? I'm curious. Or are there things that I talked about that you've experienced in your own jobs as somebody from Latin America working in Canada? I'm curious.
So just reminding everyone that if you want to use your voice to communicate, you just need to raise your hand and we will unmute you, okay?
And you can also type in the chat as well.
Yes,
if that's easier for you.
That's correct. Thank you, Dana.
No worries. Okay. Nothing yet, so we'll keep going. But if you have any comments as we go or questions, pop them in the chat. So cultural differences that are the most important. So this is definitely from a business perspective. But for me, one of the biggest things that I noticed was an introduction meeting. And my background, I come from sales. So I did tech sales. And then when I started my other company, I've sold marketing services. And then I've actually helped build other sales teams. So this really comes from my perspective as in the first call, what usually a sales call, so we usually call them a discovery call, in North America versus Latin America. So what I did here was I created a little bit of a side-by-side analysis of the differences, or what you could expect in North America and Latin America. This is based off of my own experience. So two of the biggest differences between these is, number one is the purpose. So identifying in North America, identifying how you can do business together. We see if it's financially feasible. It's very, very direct. And in Latin America, usually the first meeting, the purpose is to see if it's somebody that you would consider trusting. And it's really, really focused on the personal relationship. And the reason why this is so important is because in North America, if I book a 30-minute call with somebody, and they start asking me, about my family, and they start asking me about all of my past jobs, that's often considered rude. And it's kind of like, okay, are we gonna ever get down to business? Versus in Latin America, it's the complete opposite. Neither one is the right solution or the right way to do it. They're just really different. And so it's important to note that, because for me, I've actually been coaching a lot of my Latin American clients on how to do these calls in North America, because they would come into the call and they thought that they were being offensive by being really direct. And I said, no. We take it offensively if you're not direct. And what that also leads into is a really big difference in the time taken. So one thing that I've noticed is if somebody asks me for an introduction meeting, usually if they do send me a calendar invite, it's at least for 45 minutes, at least. Versus that when I'm doing an introduction meeting, it's always 30 minutes, and the call itself doesn't necessarily last that long. Usually it's 20 to 30 minutes. There's a very specific agenda that I create beforehand. That is totally not the case. I tried doing that in the past. It did not work out well for me when I was trying to do this in Latin America. And so I just had to learn to go with the flow a little bit more and just approach that first conversation a lot more casually, and just be prepared to talk more about my personal life and let the person get to know me a little bit more. I want to pause here for 1 second. I have a couple questions. So these were kind of the biggest main differences that I saw. But what I'm curious to understand from you guys is, why do you think the purposes are completely different? So why do you think it's so different to have an introductory call in North America versus Latin America? If you have a story you want to share, or if it's just a simple comment, I would really, really love to hear what your experience has been. Don't be shy. Raphael, have you ever experienced anything like this?
Actually, I have witnesses. Yeah, witnessed it. Yeah. Actually, a little bit of my background just quickly. I work for a Polish company based in Brazil, and I actually noticed this working with the Polish guys in Brazil. You used to work with telecommunication carrier there, and actually, when you mentioned about some of the kind of the question where you ask about the people about their family, let me just I forgot to turn my camera on. I'm sorry. So when you mentioned about asking, for instance, about your background or your previous job, or even about your family, is a little bit rude. I had that experience, to be honest, where the customer were willing to, because it's something new. They never actually talked to someone from a different culture, especially Polish, in that occasion, and they want to get to know a little bit more about them. And after the meeting, they approached me, and what was that? Like, they asked me like why they were asked such questions and so on. And so, no, it's part of our culture. We want to understand. We want to see if we come from from the same background, and we share stories, and we share experience. It's just a bit about getting to know each other, right?
Yeah, and that, the other thing I noticed, obviously, before the whole COVID situation, is if I was having meetings in Latin America, it was, like going for a beer, like usually going for a coffee. Like, it kind of seemed weird to have the meeting in the office. And that, like, we do have kind of a coffee culture, specifically here in Toronto. It's, like, go buy a fancy coffee, talk about business. But there's definitely a much more direct approach, and even before the pandemic, most of my meetings were on Zoom, even if I could meet the person, even if I was really close to them. And that's also something, is people in Latin America make a massive effort, specifically the first time they're meeting with each other, to meet in person.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple of interesting points here. So Flor says, I would say it depends on the work background of the individual. Agreed. What else is here? We need Gallo, is that correct? Gallo? We need to build a minimum level of trust first before we talk business. We do that by getting to know the person. Only after we can discuss deals. 100%. Okay, awesome. Wanted to make sure I pronounced your name right. Graciela says, South American people look warmer than North American people. I could not agree with you more. It was so weird. I just got back on Sunday, and I was going through the Toronto airport, and people were just like heads down, like, you don't really say hi. And in Mexico, it's like, buenos dias, ¿cómo estás? Buenos dias, buen dia. And it's just, everybody is so friendly. So yeah, I totally noticed that. I would agree also, it does depend on the industry. And I would also say it depends on the position of the person within an organization. Because if you're working for Google in Latin America, for example, you're also probably communicating with the people from other countries. And so there tends to be like a shift towards one way of doing things instead of every single office doing something different. Yes, exactly, Nancy. The last point that you hit there, and how much you can trust them from the beginning. So that's really good. And that leads well into my question here, which is, what does this say about how trust is earned? And we're going to dive into this a little bit more in a minute. But there's one thing that I really want to mention to just make sure for everybody here, if you're doing an introduction call, kind of following this little bit of a checklist here, is making sure you're scheduling it in a calendar. Like, I schedule everything, and if it's not in my calendar, I'm probably not showing up to it. Like, I will not be in the meeting. So if you really want to meet with somebody in North America, make sure you're sending them a calendar invite. Make sure that you're really direct. Like, don't be rude. You can come on the call and say, hey, thank you so much for taking the time. The reason for the meeting is, and then you state to see if this solution could benefit your company or whatever it is, and you just dive right in. And that is how we build trust and credibility. That's awesome, Carlos. And I agree with you, Flor. It also depends on, everything always depends on the context of the situation, everything, but these are pretty core principles that no matter what industry you're in and no matter what you do in North America, like I work with engineers, software developers, really creative people. I work with sales, I work with CEOs, and every single one of those people that is in North America, we have the same process. Send a calendar invite. It's always 30 minutes. And if it's over 30 minutes, we have a very specific reason as to why. There's usually an agenda. And if it's going to go over time, we always talk about it before the end of the meeting. And if it's not reasonable, so if we have back-to-back meetings, we'll actually just book another meeting, probably another 30-minute meeting later that week in order to complete the work that we needed to get done. So it's very regimented versus in Latin America, it's a little more go with the flow. Next time we can talk, great. Like, let's do that. And then things kind of tend to work out. It's a totally different environment. Anything else? The business relationship in LATAM is more hierarchical. Yeah, in Canada, it's linear. Yeah, I would agree with that as well. Okay, so this leads really well into the next area, which is establishing trust. So again, this is from my personal experience, but for me, seeing the way that trust was built in Latin America, it was a totally different concept for me because in North American culture, we put such a big emphasis on individuality and achievements, like achievement, achieve everything. And I actually remember when I was going off to university, I was 17 years old. I was one of the youngest people to start my first year of university. And I was driving from Toronto all the way to Nova Scotia, and I was moving out. And this is super normal. Like a lot of the time kids here were like, yes, we just want to get out of the house. We don't want to live at home anymore. And I remember my dad telling me that he felt like he did his job the right way because I felt like I was able to be independent and live by myself at 17 years old. I don't know if that was true or not. Like first year university is whatever it is. But that's such a difference in comparison to Latin America, where it's very common to see people in their mid-20s and late 20s living at home. But this is also because in Latin America, there's such a big emphasis on family and community, which often can translate into the business environment. And so we tend to be very like for ourselves. So here's what I did. This is why you should hire me. And in Latin America, what I've noticed is that people tend to want to lift the whole group or community up with them as they're going. It's less focused on just the individual and their achievements. And then this is reflected when you're doing an introduction call or building a relationship. Is in Latin America, of course, it's about the person. Are you a family person? Do you support your family? Do you treat others kindly? Who do you know that I know? And in North America, it's always, what is the average ROI on your services? Like that is almost the first question that I get asked all the time. How long does it take for me to see an ROI with your services? Everything is result focused, achievement focused. Everything needs to be measurable. And the other way that this is different in terms of building trust is because in North America, if I call you, and this actually happened last week, I sold a $600 service completely on the phone in 10 minutes. There was a guy working in Montreal, a mortgage broker, and my other company focuses a lot on the home buyer industry. We've never met before. It was literally a cold call, so not even a video call. He answered, we talked for 10 minutes, and he bought a $600 service with me, and now we're continuing to work together. I don't think that would happen in Latin America because that trust has not been built. In North America, we have a much higher foundation or level of trust in the market. And so for us, if this guy paid me $600 and I disappeared off the face of the earth, he is very confident that the legal action that he would take means that he's going to get his money back. And that's not always the case in Latin America. So again, you have to get to know the person better first. And my point here being is that it can feel really uncomfortable for people from Latin America to be this direct or to even change their mindset around the expectation of what a first sales call should look like. How direct should you be? When does money come into the conversation? And I would push you to say, kind of go a step further than you're comfortable. Because for us, it's probably just going to seem normal. And even if it's a little bit too direct, we tend to favor that over somebody that is not that direct. So always kind of take it a step further than you think. And lastly, that kind of ties it all together is that we tend to be very transactional at the beginning of a relationship. So this ties back to the achievements and the results. So for example, I've been working with a CEO now for the past six months. I feel like now we're getting to be friends, but for the first 4 months, I was just focused on every single call was just a utility. What can we do? What are we improving? Da, da, da. And now, because we talk so much, we've naturally developed a friendship. But that was definitely not the case at the beginning. It was just very much business oriented. So I actually have a couple examples of different communication I've seen in Latin America versus North America. Like actually I've screenshotted a couple things that I've received. Before we move on to the next thing, does anybody have questions about this slide or just kind of differences in establishing trust? Or is there any comments that you want to make? I'm curious if this is also what you've experienced or if you would add anything or change anything to what I have here. Nothing? Okay, if anybody thinks of anything, then just type it in the chat and we'll come back to it. Okay, so I wanted to bring this example in. So the best way that I think about how different our communication styles are is that in Latin America, it tends to be very indirect. So things are a lot more implied versus in English, we're very direct. And so you can see, I did this translation. This wouldn't be how somebody would actually translate it if they were translating it and including cultural context in it. But I kind of translated it to show how this type of emotion in Spanish could come across in English. So on the left here is a screenshot of an email that I got from a company in Argentina. They started working with a Canadian client, and they work in a very, very technical environment. And so, you know, like a lot of like artificial intelligence, machine learning, and obviously Spanish is the first language. And so they wanted a pack of classes to work with me to help teach their team how to actually run these meetings effectively in English, as well as improve their vocabulary based on the technical environment that they were in. So, you know, this is a really, really common email to get in Spanish. I know not everybody speaks Spanish, so that's why I put the English side here. But essentially, the main difference that I see here, even when I read this translation in English, is it's very, very respectful. Like, you know, it seems, we say in English sometimes, it's like oozing respect. So it's just kind of like every single line and every single word is very respectful. It's the whole point is to make sure that the other person knows that you think highly of them or you're respectful of them. And so this, to me, when I read this, I would obviously understand what the person is asking for, but it seems non-business-like for me. It kind of seems a little too personal. And so what I did here was I wrote out this email how I would write it. So this, if anybody wants to use this as a template as well, I think the presentation will be sent around. But this is a really great formula or template that you can use if you are like asking for a quote, if you're asking for an estimate, or if you're just kind of curious about somebody's services and you want to know how they can help you. So this is how I would write his email if I was writing it in English. Hi Dana, I was referred by a previous student of your business English classes that highly recommended you. My company, ABC Inc., is currently working with Canadian clients, and we'd like to understand your process and pricing to teach a group of 5, myself included. We work in a technical industry and need someone who can help us with that. We are all around the same level, B2. Let me know what the next steps are. So another really big difference in North America is we tend to be much more open with sensitive business details from the beginning. So in this email, for example, which is very different compared to this one. So when I got this email, I was like, okay, I don't want to overwhelm the guy by asking him a lot of questions, but I have no reference point for how many classes they need per week, what level they're at, what industry they're in, kind of nothing. And so in North America, we often tend to give more details freely up front. Again, because that level of trust is higher in the market. So I'm okay with giving you more details, and I hope that that'll help you help me better. And in Latin America, often it's kind of that test. So that was my first point of contact with this guy. And what ended up happening is then we had an introduction call, and then we had another one, and then we worked together. So it's just a completely different process. Notice a couple people put some notes in here. Some emails from North American companies are friendlier, less formal. Have come across this in my work experience. Yes, I do find in Spanish, it does tend to be quite formal. I've noticed that. And in especially, like, I also kind of came from the startup space, and it's kind of like, sometimes it's ridiculous. Like, people will email as if they're texting. But yeah, we tend to be really direct and informal. And then in Spanish, it's indirect and formal. So two totally different types of communication. Okay, so have a little bit of an exercise here. So this is something that I do with a lot of my one-on-one students, and then in the courses that I run, is we actually will start to look at certain situations or understanding the context of a situation, and then I'll provide a couple of options of what the right piece of communication is. So if it's an email or if it's a call or whatever it is, we'll actually go in and create the email together or create the, like a call script or prompts that they can use. So I wanted to do something similar today. So I always call it the context. So in this situation, so all of you are Ryan, and you are one of my best friends. So you're very lucky. You're a real estate agent. You work in the GTA, or specifically the Toronto area. I have recently been talking with one of my clients who I found out is looking for a house in the GTA, needs a realtor, doesn't really know anybody in the area. My client's name is Lisa, and I have told you, Ryan, because you're my best friend, that I'm going to make an introduction between the both of you guys. And then for additional context is that we have a friendly relationship and have been working together for the past 6 months, and she's really happy with my services. So this is the context of the situation. So before I show you the options that I wrote, I'm curious, do you guys think that it would be better for me to do a formal introduction? So, hi Ryan, please meet Lisa. She is one of my clients and she's looking for a home. I hope that the two of you can have a fruitful business relationship together. Or do you think it should be something a little more casual? How would you approach this situation based on the information that I gave you here? Formal, casual, informal? Would you use words like hey or hi? Tell me how you would approach this. And no answer is the wrong answer. Just FYI.
Yeah, for me, I think the second option. This is like a personal opinion, of course. That you approach me saying, "Hey, I have someone here." That you make a small introduction first, so I can get to know a little bit. That's because I'm from the Latin America, right? Mm-hmm. So I expect a little bit of context regarding the other person I'm probably going to do business with. So that would be my approach, I guess. That's how I would prefer it, actually. Yeah.
Okay, and then everybody's saying, so not too formal, informal, somewhere in between formality and informality. Yep, for sure. Okay, and then before I show you the two options, would your answer change if I told you that Lisa is also one of my best friends and she's a client? So now Ryan's my best friend and Lisa is my best friend. What would you say?
Yeah, I think that would change a lot, actually.
How would that change?
For me? Well, we talk about trust, right? So if both of them are actually your best friends, then I think I'll be totally comfortable with that. Mm-hmm. I would trust you and the others on it, for sure.
Kind of friendly, yes. That friendly is definitely a word that I think of when I think of Latin America, definitely. Okay, cool. So I'm going to show you guys the two options. So option one, hi Lisa and Ryan. Lisa, I mentioned to you the other day that Ryan helped me buy my first house in the same area you're looking. Ryan, Lisa and I have been working together for a few months now, and she's looking in Liberty Village for her first home. I'll leave you to connect. Option number one. Option number two, good morning Lisa and Ryan. I hope you're both doing well. I would like to present you both to each other as I think it would be beneficial. Lisa, Ryan helped me buy my first home and was absolutely exceptional during the entire process. I thought that you two could maybe talk and see if there was a way to work together. Ryan, I've been working with Lisa for over 6 months now, and she is a marketing director for a company in the finance industry. Please let me know if there's anything else I can do. Have an excellent day. Best, Dana. So I think we have a poll here. So I just want everybody to vote if you would use option number 1 or option number 2 based on the context that I gave you.
Yeah, so everyone, I'm gonna launch the poll here. So you're gonna be able to answer the questions, and you're gonna be able to choose actually between option 1 and option 2. So you should have it available to vote as well. All the panelists as well should be able to vote. We still need some more votes here, reaching 50% now.
This is so interesting. So interesting. Okay. Still waiting. There's 32 people on, so we're still waiting, like another 10-ish people.
So our panelists as well, make sure you voted.
Yes. Go with your gut feel. Whatever you think first, just click that one.
We're still missing some votes. So everyone.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, we're almost there. So for everyone who hasn't voted yet, just choose the best, trust your guts on this.
Yes. Okay, maybe like 5 more seconds. Close it. Can you end it on your end, Raphael?
I'm sorry?
Can you end it?
Yes, I'm going to end right now. Okay.
Perfect. Okay, option 2 won.
Yes, this is the final result that we have. We have option 1 with 48% and option 2 with 52%.
Okay, so the right answer is option number 1. This is what I find so interesting. So this option number 2, 100%. If I was emailing somebody in Latin America, I would 100% use this. It adds more context. It feels more respectful. The reason why option number 1 is better is for 2 reasons. Number 1 is that Ryan is my friend, so I have a close relationship with him. So again, I can be even more direct, and it doesn't come off as rude. And then with Lisa, because she's one of my clients, we've been working together for 6 months, and she's happy with my services. We have a very business type relationship. And business people in North America really like when you can say a lot in a few words, because we get a lot of emails, and something that, everybody gets a lot of emails, but we really like when you can just say, this is what I need, or this is what I want from you, and that's it. So this to me would be very polite. This would be a great first introduction. And then on Ryan's side, because he's the person that I'm introducing ideally for Lisa to use his services, then, I've given him enough information. He could follow up and say something like, hi, Dana, thank you so much for the introduction, moving you to BCC. Lisa, it's really great to meet you. Liberty Village is beautiful. Let's book 30 minutes to talk more about, what you need in a home. And that would be the entire follow-up email. And she would be, great, this guy knows what he's doing. They book a 30-minute introduction call. Just to give you an idea of how that would actually kind of flow. And yes, Hector, in North America, we're way more direct, and we do tend to use fewer words. The other thing too to keep in mind is, if I was to directly translate English to Spanish, I think probably also English to Portuguese, it actually just takes more words. Like it's just the nature of our languages is that they're different like that. We have more words in English that are to describe specific things. And so in Spanish, often you need 2 or 3 words to describe one word in English. And as a result, all written communication tends to be longer. And that's just the nature of our languages. And then, yes, option number 1 is way more concise. And the other thing I would add is so remember I asked you the second situation is now what happens if Lisa is my best friend and Ryan's also my best friend? Most likely I would not use email. So this is something that could be really similar to Latin America. So in Canada and in the United States, we don't use WhatsApp that much. I use it all the time now just because I have a ton of clients in Latin America. But in LATAM, I would probably make an introduction versus WhatsApp, or I might make one on email, and then I would know that those people would probably continue talking on WhatsApp. In North America, what can sometimes happen is we'll just exchange phone numbers. So I'll say, to Lisa, like, oh, by the way, like my other really good friend, Ryan's a realtor, want me to just give him your number? And she'd say yes, and I would give Ryan Lisa's number, and Lisa would know that she can expect a call from Ryan. And so the entire platform or communication channel would change if they're two really, really good friends of mine. Just something to keep in mind is it doesn't always have to be email, and depending on the nature of the relationship, the channel does change as well. Before we move on to the last thing, any questions about this section or comments? It's really interesting to read everybody's comments. And also, again, you can use this as a template to introduce people. This is a really common format where you see somebody's first name and then the dash. So you're calling their attention, and then you're just having like a very brief, direct statement about why you're making an introduction to the other person. Yes, Nadia, that is so true. In North America, time, I don't know if everybody can see your answer. Actually, it's to all the panelists. So she said that she thinks everything is about the value of time. In Canada, it's different from Latin America. Everything that saves time and is direct works much better here. 100%. And that is why, if I book a meeting at 9 a.m., I will book a meeting directly at 9:30 a.m. after, and I'm 100% confident that I'm going to be able to be on time for that meeting. And we do that because that's just the way of our culture here. We naturally adopt that. So if I'm doing a 9 a.m. introduction call with somebody from Latin America, I always leave an hour space. Even if we have a calendar invite for 30 minutes, I always leave an hour. So that's a really good point. Okay.
Yeah, a personal comment on the topic. For me, I struggle a lot to kind of translate my thinking into words when I'm sending an email here in North America and Canada particularly, because and the way that I use to see that I'm probably doing wrong is if I didn't struggle a bit to write a message in the North American let's say way of communicate, then I pretty much know that this is wrong. So I will be probably approaching the person a little bit different because I'm probably using my old way to communicate in America here in Canada, and probably that's not the best option. So that's just the feeling that I have that, I didn't struggle a bit. So if that happened, I know that it's probably wrong and I have to change something.
Yeah, exactly.
Personally.
I'm excited to have you in the course that's coming up. It's going to be really good.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's I'm really glad to participate in that program with you, because I want to I want to learn the tips. How should I when I see it and it's wrong, and how do I now I change it to make it looks correct for Canada business, right?
Exactly. Awesome. Okay, the last main topic is when should you talk about money? I think this is always a sensitive subject, no matter which culture you're in, because at the end of the day, when we're in a business setting, the whole point is for people to make money. But I think the way that we talk about money and our mindset towards it is very different in North America because we have a higher level of trust. And I personally think that this really stems from like the legal system that we have as well. Is like I've had clients in the past that literally disappeared and didn't pay me, but I had legal recourse and it worked. And I was very confident that that worked. And on the other side, so if somebody's paying me for services and I wasn't to deliver them, they have a very high level of confidence that they're going to get their money back. And so people are, a lot more willing to spend money. And often there is more disposable income or more money for investment in North America as well. So not every dollar feels the same that it does in Latin America. So here, as with everything, it tends to really depend on the situation. And again, my background is sales, but I have a ton of client relationship management now just because of the nature of my business. But specifically, if you are doing a sales call, ideally, you always want to talk about pricing on the first call. This does two things. Number one, it shows that you're not afraid to talk about pricing, because if you don't and you kind of skirt around the subject or you don't talk about it directly, the other person can think that they can start asking you for a bunch of discounts. They can start asking you for your lowest possible pricing. And you don't want that. You set your price, you know your value, and you stick to it. And then the other reason is on your side is that if you're doing a call and let's say you have an hourly rate and it's like $80 an hour, for example, and the work that you do is paid on an hourly basis, you want to make sure that that person actually has a budget to be able to afford to pay you. And so for this first introduction call, it's also an opportunity for you to qualify if that person could be a good client for you. So that's why it's really important. Something else that is different, because usually I find pricing and money does come up usually in the second call or second meeting in Latin America, and discounts are a really big thing. So I know a lot of people in their pricing strategy in Latin America, they'll have the initial price that they give, and then somebody asks them if they can do a discount, and they say, yeah, okay, we can do like a 25% discount, and then the person asks for 30%, and then they say, okay, we can do 28. That tends to happen a lot more in Latin America than it does in North America. Specifically, if you can quote pricing in a very confident way, 9 times out of 10, people will just say, okay. And the other thing is that buyers will often give a very honest answer about whether or not it's feasible. So something specifically in Mexico that I noticed was that people tend to not say no. Like they say yes, but yes can mean yes, it can mean maybe, and it can mean no. And they want to be respectful. But in North America, we view that as very disrespectful. If you know right off the beginning that you can't afford it, or you have a specific concern, just say it directly. Say it like, I was expecting $50 an hour. That's really out of my budget. And that's what people say. And then you say, okay, great. Thank you so much for taking the time. I wish you all the best. If I hear of anybody that I can refer to you, I will. And that can be the first conversation, and it's totally amicable. It's very nice. That's the right way to do business. And then the other thing that is also really, really different is our openness towards money, because there is more disposable income. And a dollar might feel it feels important in North America, but in Latin America, because that trust isn't as high, especially at the very beginning, it's harder for people to spend money, and that makes a lot of sense. But here we have a higher, more of an open mindset towards it, because what we really look for is the results. So somebody comes on a call and they want us to spend money with them. I don't really care if you're married or not, but I care if you've made other companies that are similar to my company a lot of money in the past. So again, it goes back to that very transactional relationship. And then lastly is that discounts are not always good in North America. And this is really important if you work in a service-oriented position, if you're a consultant, if you're selling technology, if you're selling something that has a direct impact on either saving time, money, or like emotional distress of somebody, do not give discounts. I'm a very, very big believer in this, because all you're doing is discounting your own value. This is something that is really ingrained in our culture. And if you start giving discounts, people will often see you as a cheap option. And the cheap option, that's something that's kind of starting to go away in North America, because a lot of people, they've outsourced a lot in the past, or they've always gone to the cheap option, but then you end up getting what you pay for. And because our money doesn't go as far here as it would if we were to hire somebody from Latin America, when you start offering discounts, or if I was to offer a discount, now all of a sudden my hourly rate goes down. Maybe I'm not as motivated, to work with that client, or, I just can't work as many hours with them. So these are all really important things. And I'm a very, very big believer of pick a price that accurately represents your value, and do not do discounts. You can work with people on payment plans. So maybe they don't pay everything all at once, but they do it over the course of a month or 2 months or something, but don't give discounts. So those are the main differences and points that I wanted to talk about with money. And that concludes the main content portion. This is just a little a little quote, I guess, so to speak, of my mindset towards all of this is that I think both of our cultures are really amazing for different things. And I'm super curious and I'm really excited to see how, as we start doing more business together, how we kind of have this mesh of cultures. And I would love to start seeing, you know, more agriculture products and just more products coming from Latin America that we don't have access to here in North America. And I'm really curious to see what this kind of like future culture looks like. And I'm really excited to be a part of it and that you guys are all here today, because I think that means that you are going to be a part of it too. And before we dive into all the questions, I wanted to mention, Raphael and I were talking about a course. I am running a course starting on August 17th called The Business of Communication. Kind of similar to what we just went through, but we're specifically focusing on personal branding when you're in a market that is not your own, how to run effective meetings. So setting an agenda, requesting a meeting, leading it, sending follow-up messages, and then email structure. So we're gonna really dive into how to send proper emails and go through a lot of different contextual examples like what we did today. So that starts on August 17th. I'm gonna be announcing it publicly tomorrow. So if you're interested, I'm gonna leave my email and my WhatsApp number, shoot me a message, and we can jump on a quick call to see if it's something that would be valuable for you. Besides that, I also do one-on-one communication training with people that are in a management position or above. So also, if that's something that you're interested in, please feel free to send me a message. This is my contact info. And if anybody has questions, I will happily take them now.
Thank you very much, Dana. So everyone, please feel free to raise your hand if you want to ask questions and use your voice to communicate with us. I have some questions, and actually I would start with one question about communication, and basically communication in general, not only specifically talking about Latin America or North America. I think nowadays we live in a world that is really fast-paced, right? We can barely catch up with all the change that happens worldwide. And what I noticed actually is that one thing that when talking about business and looking for jobs and etc., what I noticed that what hasn't changed in the past few years, at least since I started working, is the top soft skills among employers and what they look for, and that is communication, right? If we look up among all the skills right there, and what they ask for is communications always number one. And I just would like your opinion on this. Do you think this is because actually of course, companies and organizations, they want people and they want their employees to be able to communicate effectively, right? Do you think this is the main reason for that, or do you feel that maybe there's also a lack of how to communicate effectively in the marketplace, and they look for for someone with really good skills on it, and or maybe even a combination of different reasons, right, for that?
Yeah, so I think like everything that you said is really interesting, and the reason why I have completely dedicated everything that I do to communication is because it's not even just the future of being successful, it's right now being successful. Because the thing is you start looking at data jobs or jobs that are repetitive, that do not where you don't need to have a lot of soft skills. So even customer service jobs, we're starting to get into the time of being able to have an artificial intelligence program that's responding and sounding like a human on the phone. So to actually be able to compete takes emotional intelligence, it takes effective communication, and it takes creativity. But these are all of the things that we've been told to like squash out of our brains when we're growing up, because if you become a data scientist, if you become a software engineer, if you become a lawyer, these are all things where you can get paid good money. And you can, but you're also seeing like, the emergence of fintech, like financial technology, like legal tech, like all of these things that are coming out in order to replace a lot of the people that are kind of in these entry-level positions. So then you take a look at what makes leaders actually effective. Two things. Number one, effectively communicating their value proposition to the right people externally, clients and partners. Then the second thing is being able to take that vision and accurately communicate it internally to employees. Because when you do that, you have two groups of people that are bought into the same endpoint and are doing everything they can to make it a better relationship. And you still to this day, we cannot automate emotional intelligence. Like I can show you a picture of somebody that's upset and somebody that's happy. And just by seeing that, if you were to come to a meeting with that person, if you come to the meeting with an angry person, you're not going to probably open up and be like, oh my gosh, how are you today? It's so great to see you. Because you just wouldn't do that. But we don't have computer programs yet that can accurately respond to that and carry the whole conversation. So soft skills are the future of being successful. And there was, so 2 questions. Do I offer that course to companies like Scotiabank? In the future, yes, I will be offering it direct to the companies, but actually a lot of the students and clients that I work with now are employees of Scotiabank, CIBC, a lot of people that are working in the banking or engineering kind of industry. Another thing is it is worth noting, in North America, it's very important to be punctual for business meetings. I personally have not had that much of like an issue or anything with people showing up late in Latin America to business meetings. It's happened a couple times, but I've had a lot of people mention that that can be a very big difference. So yes, it's very important to be on time here, because if you show up late, people will just leave and never talk to you again. That will happen. And then another question was, how would I deal with an email follow-up in North America? So for me, actually, I'm going to be working with another Colombian company, and I just sent a follow-up yesterday. So I don't really change my communication style that much when I'm in Spanish. I still tend to be direct. But the reason I do that is because the people that I work with are looking for somebody who can be a bridge between Latin America and North America. And so when I work with them, I communicate with them the way that somebody in North America would, so that I can also teach them how we do it at the same time. But that being said, there's some different language I use. And, for example, like at the beginning in North America, often I'm just like, hi, Rafael, hope you're doing well. And then I just dive right into the email. But usually in Latin America, I'll add something more personal. It's like, hi, Rafael. Like, how was the dinner that you went to after our call the other day? Did you get a bottle of wine? Something that's a little more personal. Then I'd say, summary, blah, blah, blah. And then at the end, like, really excited to be working with you. Can't wait for our next meeting. Please let me know if there's anything I can do for you in the meantime, or whatever you need. In North America, I just am very direct. I'm like, any questions, shoot me a message. Have a great night. Talk next time. So you said follow-ups in North America. Sorry, I answered that the wrong way. But anyway, just being really, really direct. So follow-ups here, you just want to very succinctly lay out all of the summary points and the key takeaways in North America, and be very direct with an action item. If somebody has to do something, literally make a list that says action items, and then say like, Raphael to send like webinar link by 5 p.m. on Wednesday, August 5th. Like, be as specific as possible for every single action item and who it's oriented towards. And then the kind of surrounding communication, you can be quite direct. Seppi, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, we also have one question here about from Katya. How can we nurture relationships and gain our Canadian colleagues' trust?
Personal branding. This is a really big thing, and this has really been expedited by the entire COVID situation, because you can't go out. But again, remember, we really, really favor individuality and achievements. So that being said, right now is a really key time to invest in developing a personal brand, and even if it's just on one channel, so LinkedIn, I would highly recommend, where you can start to position yourself as a thought leader or somebody that is, really up to date on what's happening in your industry, what's happening in your company, and providing value on the internet to other people. Because if I was your colleague and I come onto LinkedIn, let's just say, you work at a bank, and I come on and I see that, you've posted like your opinion on a new financial product or something like that. Here's who it's for. This is how it can really help somebody. And I see that as your colleague. I'm like, I'm going to see you, or I'm going to Slack you a message or send you a message on Skype or whatever. Like, hey, saw your post, or I'm going to interact with it on LinkedIn. Now we have another communication channel between us. And because I favor achievements and people that are really goal oriented, I'm gonna be like, oh, who is this girl? I want to talk to her a little bit more. So I'd say number one, investing in developing a personal brand and content strategy for yourself is, again, it's the now and it's the future of networking that will get you promotions and help kind of fit you into the social fabric of your organization. Any other questions? I think we're almost at time, I think.
Yeah, actually, I would like to ask you a few more questions. I have one. When you mentioned about email communication and meetings and so on, I had a situation, and I think it probably my Latin American friends will also recognize that. When working for that Polish company in Brazil, we had a meeting, and the main reason I was hired by that company was to make this bridge, the communication bridge between the customer and our guys in the headquarters in Poland. And one situation that I noticed that happened, it was the first time, is after the meeting, we discuss a lot of topics, and the clients, we say, okay, so please, you're gonna do this, and Dana, you're responsible for this item, Rafael, you're responsible for that one. And after everything discussed, the client is still asked for an email. So they want everything like reading in kind of a minute of meetings. And that was that sounded strange from our Polish colleagues. I don't know if it. Well, my guess is because of the lack of trust, I guess. I think that in Poland, when you say in the meeting, okay, you're responsible for item number 1, I'm responsible for item number 2. If that's being said, I know that I'm responsible. I'm gonna do the work, so I don't need nobody to send me an email to just make it reading that I'm actually responsible for that. And after the meeting, the guys approached me and said, why did they ask us to send like everything like reading in an email? And then I had to explain, this is normal after the meeting. We had the meeting minutes, but everyone just sum up all the conversation in an email, like a concise email saying that everyone is responsible for anything. And but yeah, that happened, and I think that's probably by lack of trust, or probably because of the way we communicate and we run meetings in Latin America. But I don't know if you have experienced the same.
Yeah, I think North America is kind of in between that, because I mean, personally on my end, I always send detailed follow-up emails, because that's a big part of what I feel is necessary, specifically if you're doing client relationship stuff. So you're working on projects, there's like a lot of little things. I always send that, and I structure my emails like main takeaways is, next month we're launching this project. So things that's kind of like to keep in mind, but they're not immediately actionable. And then I have an action items area where I identify who is responsible for what they need to get done, and when they need it to get done by. And then I also add a point at the bottom that says, please reply confirming that you have received and read this email. So then you get an email back from ideally everybody saying that they've read it. Some people do that. Other people just think it's the responsibility of the meeting participants. I tried that a couple times and it just didn't really work out. So I just prefer to do it the way that I know it's going to work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. We actually had a question from Flor. Flor actually had asked about the slide where you have the email. If you can, I don't know if you can go back to that slide. Yes, option 1 and 2. Yes, actually. What Flora asked is, had it been an unknown person to the email sender, would you have chosen option number 2? So I guess what she's asking for, and Flora, you can correct me if I'm wrong. If you're sending an email to a person that you don't know yet, would you still go for option number 1, or you would choose option number 2?
So is this like if I was to just reach out to somebody and just introduce myself?
Exactly, someone that you don't know yet.
Okay, so in that case, everything is completely different.
Yeah.
It's not option 1 or option 2. The way that I view that is, no matter if you're selling something or you're introducing yourself to somebody because you want to like network with them, at the end of the day, you're selling yourself. So if that was the case, I'll type kind of a bit of a structure here in the chat. So what I would always do is you have to state why you're emailing them. That's step one. Build credibility. So step two is build credibility. So for example, you're working on a project that could be relevant to them. Step two. And then step three is making your ask. Make your ask. So this is like meet for coffee, Zoom call, whatever it is. And here a key is to give many options so it's easy for them to say yes. So this is kind of like the anatomy of a introduction email. So like, for example, if I was just to reach out and introduce myself to Lisa, I would say like, hi Lisa, reaching out because I saw that you're also involved in in women in the legal industry and working towards more inclusion. Just as an example, subject two is currently working on a podcast to bring female lawyers from around Canada to bring more awareness to like some of the mental health issues that we're facing. If you're interested, would love to set up a 30-minute Zoom call with you and see if there's a way we could collaborate on this together. Let me know if one of the following times works for you. And then I give 3 dates and times with specific time frames. So 12 to 3 p.m., whatever it is. And what that does is it builds credibility because it shows that I did my research on who she is. It shows that I actually have something that's relevant to her. And it gives a very clear next step with specific times that the next step can happen, as well as the platform. So she knows that we're gonna have a call. Hopefully that answers your question. If you want to reach out to me, I can also send you an actual template that I've created specifically for email introduction, so you can have that, and it has examples. So feel free to reach out to me. I'll put this back up here.
My last question would actually be regarding still that option number 1 and 2. As I mentioned, I personally, the way I approach this, that I know that I'm doing something wrong and I need to improve my email, for instance, is that, oh, I didn't struggle to write that, so I need to change something, right? I hope that I get to learn a lot more in the program that I'm taking with you. Of course, I'm really glad to have signed up for that and look forward to it. But is there any tips that we can share that you can share with us about this? Then when sending an email, probably I don't know if someone else also has some kind of strategy to try to improve the email communication. But some sort of tip that we can, okay, I have really my email is ready to send, but I don't feel really comfortable or secure that that's actually the best way to approach what the topic I'm currently dealing with. Is there anything that you suggest us to watch for?
This is probably my number one tip for this is your subject line is really important, because your email doesn't matter if nobody ever opens it. And if you think about emails that everybody probably has in their inbox right now, the subject line doesn't tell you a lot, or it's confusing, or it's from somebody that you know is not a good communicator. So you're putting off answering it. Because what this does is that it puts the responsibility on you to decipher or to like dig in and research, what is this person trying to say to me? What do I need to do? So let's say, going back to this example, like let's say this is, 3 days ago and I need the access link for the webinar. Here's my subject line, which I think was actually the one that I sent to you, is just like presentation attached, poll info inside email, and access to webinar link needed. That was literally my subject line. And then when in the email, it was literally, here's the poll questions, and then a highlighted area that said important note, I need access to the link. We also both knew that the webinar was today, so there was a specific deadline. Yes. To be even more specific, I could, like, let's say in the future it was an event invitation and I needed it to be approved. Please review and approve invitation by Wednesday, August 5th at 5 p.m. So that's the subject line. You know what you have to do before you even open the email. That makes it so easy. And what you'll notice is when you start using subject lines that tell the person what they need to do and when they need to do it by, you're going to start having people do things more quickly for you. You'll actually notice that, or they'll get back to you quickly, and it will actually make your job a lot easier. So that's my number one tip, is make sure your subject line says what and when to do it by.
Okay, thank you very much. Note taken for sure. That is something that I can actually use on my daily basis at work. So yeah, definitely we'll look for to improve that. So does anyone have some more questions? We're actually past 7 p.m. already. Just want to make sure before we. Okay.
And feel free to send me a WhatsApp message. I have kind of adopted a lot of the communication style in Latin America, so it's like way easier to talk on WhatsApp if you have questions, but also feel free to email me, whatever is easier for you. Okay,
so I would like to thank you, Dana, one more time. Really amazing presentation. I think everyone really enjoyed this. Such, highly valuable information right here for every one of us. Be you a business owner, an executive, or someone just starting a career in Canada, I think this is definitely something for us to, to succeed in this breakthrough in the Canadian marketplace. So really appreciate your time with us, and yep, I talk to you soon. Thank you very much, and thank you everyone for joining us and to staying late.
Yes, yeah, I appreciate that. Enjoy your Wednesday evening, and maybe when all of this is done, we can meet in person at some point.
Sure, absolutely. And everyone, that Carla just shared a link. We have, if I'm able to share my screen right here, just a moment. Just want to share that we're going to have the next webinar later this month. So let me try just to share my screen just so you all know. So this is the webinar that we are having on August 26th, Intermediate Excel Workshop. So the link will be available soon for us to register, so it's free. Please enjoy and register if you want to get some tips on Excel and improve your ability as well. You're all welcome, and I will for sure participate in this one as well. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you, Dana. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. Ciao.